Most fathers don't even support their children. They'll just move on to another family, and as they move on, they take care of the ones that they're with at that particular moment.
Meet Palle Bo, a digital nomad from Denmark on an epic journey around the world.
My name is Palle Bo, and I'm a long-time radio producer. In 2013, I started planning to become a digital nomad and a full-time traveler. 3 years later, I had sold my house, my car, and all my furniture. And in July 2016, I set out on a quest to visit every country in the world. In this podcast, I'm taking you along on my journey, and I'm sharing my ups and downs and let you listen in to conversations with some interesting people I meet along the way.
This is the Radio Vagabond podcast.
I'm driving in the mountains with my new friend John. We're about 170 kilometers north of Managua that we just passed on the way from Granada. And we're getting closer to the border of Honduras, another 100 kilometers north of here. Right here, we're driving through farmland.
Yeah, you had farmers out here, you had a little bit of cattle, a little bit of quality farming, but
Tobacco industry up here.
Tobacco industry is the largest business in this country behind tourism and sugarcane.
The tobacco industry, especially cigars, is what keeps this city alive.
This city would not exist. It would not exist at all. It would not be on the map. The tobacco industry, because they also give so much money into the food and beverage industry, the hotel industry, if you really consider it, the tobacco industry employs 90% of everybody in this city. One way or another. Because the hotels are full because of the tobacco industry. The restaurants are full because the employees have money to be able to spend and go eat at restaurants.
Yeah.
Because the tobacco industry does take care of them. There is a lower level, definitely in the tobacco industry, basically the growers, the farmers, the handlers, the rollers, but they are taken care of, and that's the difference in the tobacco industry. They actually take care of their people. Some of the tobacco industry here and tabacaleras, have buses that bus in their entire staff every day, feed them for lunch every day, have medical services for them every day. So this has helped this city tremendously. But I mean, you still, as you're going to go around into the favelas, into the barrios as they're called here, it's a sad sight. It is a sad sight. I mean, because there's a lot of poverty here. And a lot of the owners of the tabacaleras don't live here, but they've invested money to clean it up. The new baseball stadium that was just built, the soccer stadium that was built. So they do help, but you're not going to see an upper scale neighborhood here because those people really don't live here. No. There's one little upper scale neighborhood, but I mean, you can't compare it to anywhere else in the world when you talk about an upper scale neighborhood. It's still surrounded by tin shacks and mud floors. I think there might be a dozen, well-to-do homes in the area.
Let me introduce you to the guy in the car. His name is John Papas, and when I met him in the restaurant where I'm staying in Granada, here in Nicaragua, we became instant friends. Sometimes you meet someone where you just click, and this was one of those times. 3 things I noticed immediately about John. He's got a beautiful tattoo with Greek gods that covers his entire right arm. He's almost always smiling and always has a cigar. Most of the time it's not lit. He just sits with it, like most people would sit around with a smartphone. Because John is a cigar man and a philanthropist with a big love for Nicaragua. And then he's a Greek-Irish-Canadian.
Greek-Irish-Canadian.
With your heart in Nicaragua.
Yeah, a Greek-Irish-Canadian with tobacco in the veins.
And English-speaking from the French-speaking part of Canada.
That's right. Born and raised in Montreal, Quebec. My father's from Greek descent, my mother's from Irish descent. And several years ago, I just decided that my life needed a purpose and a change, so I got in contact with some friends who are in the tobacco industry here, and I asked them, I said, you know what, I'd like to give back to a tobacco growing country. And, met with a friend, Nick Melillo, who owns Foundation Cigars. And I said, Nick, I love your cigars. I love the industry. I smoke 4 or 5 cigars a day. I said, I want to give back to a country so that I can help the children of an impoverished country like this not end up working in the factories. And he was like, well, I understand you want to help, and I'd love to help you. So he came, found the orphanage for me, and together we've been supporting it for the last several years. Of course, it's very hard when working with an NGO that runs hundreds and hundreds of orphanages around the world, to actually get them to understand that yes, they do a great job, but there needs to be more done. And on a personal level, when you want to come and help an NGO, it's usually very hard to break down their barriers because of their strict rules and regulations. Trickle-down effect. Money goes to the top, and eventually, an X percentage gets down to the actual level where it's actually helping the kids due to the fact of the large administration. So when I came here, it was a strict rule that anything I brought had to be taken care of by us. Originally, it was not accepted until eventually breaking down, the wall. Keep beating on the wall, eventually it's going to fall. So eventually it fell, and now they allow me to make certain decisions, and all the funds that we bring are completely controlled 100% by us.
Okay.
Yeah, through our foundation.
Yeah.
We're driving through a poor neighborhood. We're on a dirt road with tiny houses on each side and a huge building at the end of it. That's a cigar factory, probably the biggest in the area.
But again, as we're looking around, just to describe a little bit, we've just recently started seeing some cement structured houses here in the neighborhood.
It's not tin shacks.
No, not anymore. I mean, there's still a lot of tin roofs, but as you can see around the area, no sewage system, a lot of mud, a lot of dirt, a lot of garbage laying around, only because it's also a dead-end barrio where there's no connection into another barrio. Usually here you don't get any type of services from the mayor. So when it rains here, this street here becomes an entire swamp. For days it's infested with mosquitoes, and as you can see, there was rain recently. The mud has just washed one of the roads away that was probably our best route down, so we came down another way to try to get in from the back door, because the front door is right now unmanageable. And I mean, as you can see, we're looking around at garbage, at dirt roads, and we started to see some better structures, only because we're helping a lot of these families. All these families that live in this barrio also are assisted by our program. So, you'll see a lot of them are fresher, newer. Not newer built. In general, most of these are, wouldn't be considered anywhere new in other countries, but they're at least newer for these barrios.
John wants to show me the orphanage he's working with. It's part of the SOS organization, and as we're approaching, we can see a little bit of a difference.
The foliage, the trees, the entranceway. So we're proud of having cleaned up. We do have it's a 2-meter high fence with barbed wire, unfortunately. It's for protection reasons. There's not much crime in the area, but again, we just want to protect the children, protect the assets that we have here as well, and that's important. So we only have 2 security guards, one at the front gate, one at the back. So we do have to, put up a little bit of something else, especially in the evening when the security guards will probably fall asleep.
We're entering the orphanage when we continue.
And you walk into a little bit of a paradise.
But first, let me remind you that this episode is brought to you in part by Hotels25.com. Whenever you need a hotel anywhere in the world, go to Hotels25.com. That would get you the best price. Hotels25.com searches a bunch of the biggest hotel sites in one simple search. Hotels25.com, it's best price guaranteed. It's a Sunday morning in Nicaragua. and it's not normal for guests to be able to visit this orphanage. So I feel quite lucky that John would take me there.
So we're coming up, and you see it freshly painted. It's always freshly painted, the entrance sign. Our gates are manned, and you walk into a little bit of a paradise that we try to do for these kids. So as we're pulling in,
First thing we see is a
playground with slides and swing sets that are painted 3-4 times a year. Actually, they were just freshly painted. Grass, which is very rare, even though it's not grass that we see normally outside. You don't see any children right now because they're actually in activities, Sunday morning activities. Non-religious, of course. We allow the children to make their own decision when it comes to religion. No religion is forced here on any child. So that's why we came in and you're not seeing a single soul because they're all at activities right now. And that's a normal thing on Sunday mornings, that there'll be dance classes and they do drama and a whole bunch of other types of activities on Sunday morning, and usually finishes around 11:30, 12. So we'll start seeing the little faces pop up in and around us. So we'll hop on out of the car and I'll give you a little quick tour. And again, this is something very rare. So I'm not saying to feel privileged, but this is very, very rare that someone can just walk these like this.
How many kids are here?
Depending on the seasons, this place can house 95 total kids. It runs on average, with our out program, can go into the 100. But on a regular basis, we're in the 50, 60 in this particular facility. And that's not including the teenagers. That's just basically the younger generation. The teenagers actually live in their own dormitory.
Okay.
So once they become 17, 18, 19, they actually live independently on their own.
Okay.
So they live together, they have a budget. So it's kind of like getting them used to being out on their own.
Yeah.
But with the security of having us behind them.
Yeah.
And then once they decide to go out, we also have another program that actually assists them once they get outside of the walls.
Yeah.
So we continue to follow up with them.
Yeah.
So in this one here right now, this particular location, we probably have around 50 to 60 kids under the age of 17.
I asked John where the children that lives here comes from.
Usually most are not orphans, because there are orphanages for orphans, but unfortunately there's very few facilities like ours that most of our kids are abused in multiple ways, physically, mentally, and other, unfortunately. So when the government can't deal with that situation, they need somebody to help. And that's where we come in, because we have a team of psychologists and doctors, and SOS really does it the right way when it comes to assisting the kids that basically are being left by the system. We do have orphans as well. I mean, we do have mothers that come and just drop off their kids.
Yeah.
But of course, there's a process between that, because you just can't take the kids.
No.
You know, you have to go through the government ministry, and then there's a lot of paperwork and a lot of things to do. But usually the kids that are brought here by the government, because the government has nowhere to put them, because they don't know how to deal with them. No. Most of these kids come here with severe psychological issues. And that is another reason why we don't like to bring too many strangers into the buildings, into the dwellings. After hours is the sun goes down here on a regular basis, so it never fluctuates. Sun always goes down between 5 and 6 in Nicaragua, all year round. So once dusk comes on, no male figures other than security guards, even myself, will leave. Unless there's an activity or a birthday party or something, we'll be here. But usually in general, no men are allowed here in the later hours. And that's just to let the kids feel, comfortable and relaxed, so that there's no stress of,
you, but they know you.
Even me. Yeah. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. There's, these kids have gone through hell and back. Yeah. So we don't take a chance.
The thing with sexually abused children is a big problem here in Nicaragua. I've heard someone say that maybe 1 out of 3 children have been abused here. So the rule makes sense. Also, this is a country with so many single mothers. I was told that many men have no responsibility and they just move on to the next woman after he makes her pregnant.
Most fathers don't even support their children. They'll just move on to another family and leave their other family behind without even, thinking twice about, unfortunately they can't afford to feed all of them. So as they move on, they take care of the ones that they're with at that particular moment.
At the orphanage, we walk up to the room where the activity is taking place, and we see that this is not an activity for the young children.
This is the probably the 15 to 20 range, so they're probably getting all types of lessons on life and leadership and just general life teachings. Again, non-religious. So basically there's a psychologist or a teacher talking to them now, and she's here on a Sunday, and that's part of their everyday life. There is no particular days here. Monday to Sunday is 24 hours a day when you have families to take care of. So the kids basically are here to get motivated and are being coached in life skills. So this is basically about, I'd say there's got to be about 25 kids, because there's more here in the corner. And this again is an activity that is offered to them. It's not mandatory, but for instance, there is one of the young ladies in there right now is actually part of our out program. So she actually doesn't live on site. So she's here on her day off, I guess, because she actually works and goes to school during the week. So she's here on a Sunday back in the village doing a course, even though she's already moved on into her own personal life, because this is their family, and this assists them to get further in life.
You're listening to the Radio Vagabond podcast. Before we continue, I want to remind you that I have a Facebook page where I share a lot of thoughts, pictures, and videos. You'll find it by going to facebook.com/PalaRadioVagabond.
Seeing that Nicaragua is a maternal or matriarchal country, even our village is based on a matriarchal.
In what way? Can you explain that?
The mother is everything here. The mother is the boss. The mother controls the family. The father really doesn't exist here. Women are in abundance to men after the Civil War in the 80s.
Yeah, how much is it?
In the rural areas, you can go as high as 20 to 1. 20 to 1 in the rural areas. In the big cities, you can see somewhere between 6 to 8 to 1. So, of course, that gives the male population the option to, excuse the expression, hit and run. And that's what scares us with our kids when they get out. Sexual activity is rampant here at a very young age.
Yeah.
So
maybe we should just talk a little bit about that.
More than 13 million children are born every year to mothers between the ages of 15 and 19. In fact, almost 25% of all babies being born in this country are from teenage mothers, and around 50% of the women here in the country give birth before they're 20 years old.
Unbelievable. Here, basically, being a matriarchal society, the mother pushes the daughter to become a woman as fast as she can, because then she becomes the mother and then she controls her part of the family. So unfortunately here, especially in the rural areas, the education level is almost nil. Only now we're starting to see in smaller towns like this more education popping up, especially about the sexual education. Unfortunately, it's still taboo here to talk about it openly, especially in schools. And
you don't teach birth control?
No, not here. Not here.
Abortion in Nicaragua is completely illegal. Contraception is a bit of a taboo and something that the Catholic Church frown upon.
Exactly. So it's very frowned upon here to discuss about birth control and contraception. So we try to teach, kids from a young age, not just here. I mean, we go out and on the streets and I'll see young kids and just take 2 minutes out of their time and say, you know what, grow up first. Just, enjoy your life and grow up. Be a child, be a teenager, be a young adult. Don't rush to be a parent so quick. So unfortunately here, the male population puts a lot of pressure on the young females because they know they have the choice. They can just, move on to the next if one says no. So the younger females here have a tendency to not say no when they should be saying no. We can't stop it. We can help it, but we can't stop it.
John told me that one day some of the people here came across a 13-year-old girl in the city. 13 years old and very pregnant.
They decided they talk to her a little bit about her life and see if she was okay. I mean, you always want to help people out on the street.
So they started talking to her and walked home with her.
And they went back to the house and discussed with the family.
And met her mother.
Her mother comes out and is pregnant.
The mother was 27 and very pregnant.
So in other words, she had her daughter at around 14 and she was pregnant.
Both mother and daughter were about to give birth any day. And as they were talking, in walks the grandmother. She was around 45 years old and very pregnant.
She was pregnant as well, and she was probably in her mid-40s.
So 3 generations of Nicaraguan women, all very pregnant.
Yeah, all 3 of them pregnant.
And this is gonna knock you off your feet. Apparently, it was the same guy.
From what they all said was that it was with the same individual.
So the same guy.
Yeah.
With 3 generations.
With 3 generations, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The mother's boyfriend got her pregnant, and her mother, and her 13-year-old daughter.
Can I verify that story 100%? No. Am I sure that, the individuals that were there discussing that? I pretty much trust their word, so, but it happens here.
We walked around the area for more than an hour. John tells me more about what they do and all the different projects he's involved with. Mostly it's the little extra things that will improve their lives here, like draining a swamp in the area and turning it into a ball pitch, taking the kids to a football game when the local team won the championship, throwing a party and things like that. He tells me that in the orphanage there are a lot of women, but only one real father figure works here. And then we just happened to run into him.
This is actually the dad. This is our only dad. ¿Todo bien?
Estamos cocinando.
Sí. This is our only dad in the whole place. This is
Solo varones hay aquí.
yeah. He takes care of all the young gentlemen, and he does a phenomenal job. No habla español.
No.
Un poquito de español. Un poquito de español. This gentleman.
Fui a la escuela en
sí.
5 días.
Oh, super.
Pero 35 años en escuela habla español, pero
Jeez, you speak better than me. And I thought you said you didn't speak at all. That's pretty good. But this gentleman here is something else. And he's a rare breed here in Nicaragua.
John always wanted to be a father himself, but things didn't turn out that way.
I had a situation in my life where my wife and I always had difficulties in our lives when it came to actually having a child. So we struggled for many years and traveled all over the world, different doctors to see if we could get pregnant. And after many tries, we eventually got pregnant, and we were completely shocked. We had lost hope completely. Unfortunately, she was never able to give birth, so we lost the child. And unfortunately, she had to do that on her own because she was kept in a foreign country. because she has a particular disorder with her blood. When she got pregnant, the doctors wouldn't allow her to fly home, so she actually had to live there. And I had to go back to work, and everything was fine and dandy. Thank goodness we were comfortable enough that it wasn't going to tax our lives more than just being apart. And eventually, when she lost the child, I was not with her. So when I met this young lady here, I kind of looked into her eyes and was like, there was a connection, an instant connection. And we had chosen, of course, our name for our daughter. And I asked this young lady her name, and she told me her name, and it was the name we were giving to our daughter. And she would have been pretty much the same age. And there was just a connection with her. Legally, I couldn't adopt her, seeing that she was from a situation where her actual family still is alive, so she wasn't an orphan. So the technicalities of adopting her legally were almost near impossible. But with her was something special. So when she turned 18, I was like, well, if you'd accept, I'd love to be your dad. And I can't do it legally, but through, of course, and this was all done with the approval of everyone here. She said yes. So we kind of did a you and me adoption. So I'm supporting her here now. She's moved out of the village.
And she's how old now?
She's 19. She just turned 19 yesterday.
Yeah.
So she's 19 now. So it was our 1-year anniversary as well of our let's say our agreement to adopt. And and she calls me dad. And I do the father thing, the boyfriends, I scare off the boyfriends, and I get to play dad, and just hearing that word is something special. So for me, this is in French we say un raison d'être. I was always looking and searching for my purpose in life, and I found it.
That was almost it for this episode. In a moment you can hear what to expect in the next episode. But before that,
let me remind you that I would be so thrilled if you would give me some stars in Apple Podcast or in your podcast app. And if you have a few minutes, please write a few lines in a review. It helps other people find this podcast. You can reach me on mail if you have any feedback or questions or tips for me on what to see and who to talk to when I get to a new destination. I promise that I'll answer any email I get on mail@theradiovagabond.com. You can follow me real time, where I am right now, on the official Facebook page, facebook.com/PalaRadioVagabond, and on Instagram and Twitter as Radio Vagabond. Find all these links at theradiovagabond.com, where you can also see a lot of pictures. In the next episode, John will take me to visit a small cigar factory.
So the tourists can walk away from Nicaragua with fake cigars or Cuban cigars, but can't walk away with Nicaraguan cigars, which is absolutely ridiculous.
We meet a local street artist.
Listen, we got to find a wall and make a nice graffiti. Either way, we need to make it.
I visit the eco-lodge Manku Lake Paradise that I mentioned last week.
So Manku Lake Paradise means the paradise of the lake of the friends.
And then I get sick, and I'm so looking forward to that. Well, maybe not the getting sick part. My name is Palabo. See you.